Hey, what's up, guys? So this will be my video about UFC 207, the results of UFC 207. It was a pretty good card overall, pretty entertaining. There weren't too many, boring, I hate to say the word boring, but it's generally like if you go and watch these fights with a group of people, I always think of these fights as the fights where everybody starts talking or not quite paying attention to everything that's going on, because the action is either just a little too specialized or they're on the ground for long stretches of time. Most of the casual fans and the people who are there to just hang out and not watch the fight generally start to kind of lose interest during these types of fights. And there weren't that many on the main card. Really, just the first fight, Ray Borg against Louis Smolka, was that kind of fight, and really it was just because Borg was dominating on the ground. He out-grappled Smolka by comfortably. He comfortably out-grappled him, and Smolka had a huge reach advantage, and you would assume he had a big leverage advantage, and he's very good on the ground. I've seen Smolka fight a couple times. I've only ever seen Borg fight once. I was kind of expecting Smolka to do to Borg what Borg did to Smolka, and so I'm very impressed by Borg's grappling. He controlled every position in that fight. I mean, Smolka didn't win any of the scrambles. It just seemed like Borg always ended up where he wanted to be, and was always able to maintain that position pretty effectively without too much effort, and he won handily. And so that was the first fight of the main card. I'm not going to really talk about the prelims. I didn't get a chance to see them because of the circumstances of that day, and really, I didn't miss much. One of the fights, the Tim Means fight, was ruled a no contest because he kneed Oliveira while he was on the ground. And then Magny and Hendricks. Magny won by decision. That's pretty much how I expected that fight to go. And Hendricks is saying that he's going to move up to 185. I think he just needs to quit fighting. I mean, I hate to say that, and of course it's none of my business, and it's, he's a world championship level fighter, and he's going to make his decision as to when he's going to stop, but he doesn't look at all like the same guy. He doesn't look at all like Johnny Hendricks, and maybe going up to 185 will help him with that, but I don't really think so. I just think he's not the same guy. He doesn't love fighting, and he doesn't love training. I mean, and he's starting to get really fed up with the media and stuff. Like, it just looks bad for him, and I see him maybe taking one or two more fights at 185, and then if he loses, I see him quitting or retiring. And Brandon Thatch got tapped again, and it's like, dude, we all know you're a good striker, but are you just not training jiu-jitsu? Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, this is mixed martial arts. This is not fucking kickboxing. If you want to be a kickboxer, go do kickboxing. I mean, goddamn, every time that dude ends up on the ground, he gets tapped. It doesn't matter who he's fighting because he has no ground skills whatsoever. None. I mean, his ground skills are amateur. And he's fighting in the UFC. It just blows my mind. It's like, why are you're completely fucking unprepared. You just think nobody's gonna ever get you down? Because of all the hype that was around that guy. Oh, by the way, this is what this shirt says. That's a message I live by in life. Anyway, I don't even remember what I was gonna say because it's just not worth. It's not worth even talking about Brandon Thatch. He's not gonna be in the UFC much longer. I can tell you that. But moving on to the main card. So Smolka and Borg, they had a good fight, but it wasn't very competitive. I mean, Borg just controlled everything. Borg outfought him in every aspect of the game, and controlled and won that fight pretty handily. Moving on to the next fight, it was DHK versus Tarek Saffiedine. So Dong Young Kim versus Tarek Saffiedine. And for those of you who missed my preview video, Dong Young Kim is kind of he's a judoka, but he's been kind of dabbling in this like kamikaze striking style that was designed to get him some attention. And he kind of abandoned it in his last fight because he kind of just did a safe win. Took the guy down, controlled position, and won the fight by decision like he had been when he first got into the UFC. But then this fight with Saffiedine, he couldn't get Saffiedine down. I was really impressed with Saffiedine's takedown defense, especially from within the clinch. Saffiedine was winning those positions in the clinch and hitting him with shots and staying on his feet. And so he forced DHK to engage in a striking battle, and then DHK, especially like halfway through the second round, DHK started coming at him with that kind of kamikaze style, that kind of no defense, all offense, kind of not worried about getting hit, just flinging shots at the other guy. He started doing that about halfway through the second quarter or second round when he realized that he wouldn't be able to take him down, at least not without expending an incredible amount of energy. He started trying to just wing shots at him, and Saffiedine's just too good for that, man. I mean, Saffiedine is he's a professional striker, and his technique is very, very good. He's very tight in everything that he does. His footwork is very good. He's always in just the right position, and so he didn't have much trouble defending against the kind of wild offense of DHK and answering with his own counters and, of course, his own rational leg kicks. Saffiedine was landing body kicks too. He was landing jabs. He looked very good, and his grappling was really the most impressive part to me, his defensive grappling, because I expected him to be on the ground a lot in this fight, and they weren't on the ground at all. I mean, there might have been one time early in the fight. It's kind of fuzzy to me now, but early in the fight, I want to say they did get to the ground at one point, but Saffiedine got back up pretty quickly, and Kim struggled to take him down after that, and eventually pretty much gave up on it. I mean, the last round and a half was pretty much just a standing battle, and that, it just plays into Saffiedine's hands. At that point, DHK is just trying to knock him out, and Saffiedine is just doing what he knows how to do best. So that was a good fight. It became very entertaining, especially halfway through the second round, when DHK gave up on trying to get the takedowns. But Saffiedine won that fight by decision, which I gave him all three. It was 30-27 in my opinion. I mean, it was a close fight, but it was one of those fights where even though it's close, one guy won every round. And then when we go off to the third fight was TJ Dillashaw against John Lineker. Now, this was a really good fight, fun to watch. Dillashaw basically fought a perfect fight. He was just dancing around Lineker, making sure he was never really in range for any real serious damage, and making sure he got out of the way of any winging shots that Lineker threw at him. In the third round, after the first two rounds, basically of that, just kind of dancing around him, hitting him when he can. He took him down a couple times, landed some ground and pound, but basically just kind of controlled the flow of the fight, just kind of really naturally controlled the stand-up and the grappling, and stayed out of the way. His footwork was really tight, and he just basically didn't get hit very hard in the first couple rounds at all. In the third round, he took Lineker down for most of the round, and he was landing some pretty substantial ground and pound. I mean, just crushing his face with elbows, like, over and over again. But Lineker, I know Lineker's nickname is Hands of Stone. It should really be Head of Stone, or like Face of Stone. That dude can just take shots like like it doesn't, like he's not, I don't know how best to explain it. Like, he just takes shots like it's not even affecting him. Which sounds, like too obvious. I wanted to try to say that in like a more suave way, but he just takes shots like they're nothing. He just eats them. And, I mean, it's part of his game plan. Like, he doesn't even try to put his hands up most of the time. Like, on the ground with Lineker, he was holding position. Like, he was holding on to Lineker's legs, trying to get himself in the right position to try to sweep or get up. And Dillashaw was just slamming down his forearm into Lineker's face over and over again. Just slamming him in the face with his forearm. And Lineker was just like he just would absorb the blow and keep working with his hands, trying to get his hands to the right spot where he could get a sweep or get up. and he just never made any kind of movement, or he never tried to stop that ground and pound from happening. He just ate the shots until he could get up, and he never even looked like he was close to being in trouble or hurt or anything like that. You couldn't even tell. When you looked at his face afterward, Dillashaw looked a little bit more beat up than Lineker. I mean, Lineker's chin is ridiculous, man. There's just some guys that just have, like, I don't know what it is genetically, like if they just have like super thick necks, and then like because you know, a lot of your chin is really your neck. If your head gets snapped around, you know, your body just kind of shuts down. And so if you have a real big, strong, thick neck, that can help with your chin. And also, I mean, but really, it comes down to cardio and toughness. I mean, and that Lineker dude, his fucking head, that he has a bowling ball for a head, man. Nobody's gonna knock that dude out at least until he's much older and has a lot more fight mileage on him. So that was a good fight. Lineker had a couple moments where he landed some nice combinations. I love the way that dude throws body shots. He just fucking wings big, huge body shots into people's guts, and it's just like, I just don't understand how they can take those shots, man. I'd rather get punched in the face a million times than take one of those knees or one of those big fucking left hooks to the liver. I'd take a punch right in the nose 10 times before I take one of those. That shit would hurt so bad. I mean, obviously fighters have to train their bodies to take impacts, like, you know, that's what they're doing. If you see fighters like laying on the floor and a guy standing above them with one of those big medicine balls that's super heavy, and they're like bouncing it off his stomach like super hard, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to toughen up the skin and the muscles in the abdomen to try to protect the liver and the other organs, because obviously if you take a shot to the liver, that's going to be the fight. That's going to be the end of the fight, because your body just shuts down. So you want to try to make the abdomen muscles real strong and tough so that they can absorb the blow and protect the liver and the other organs. And so, I mean, obviously those guys are trained to take those kind of shots, but god damn, that shit would hurt. And it looks so much more painful than the shots to the face. So now, moving on to the next fight, because obviously Dillashaw won a pretty substantial decision in that fight, 30-27. I mean, I could have even made an argument it should have been 30-26. I mean, Lineker is a great fighter, but he just didn't get anything going. He never got any kind of offensive momentum or any kind of offense going at all, really. He had a couple combinations where he landed some good shots, and he tagged Dillashaw, you know, maybe 2 or 3 times throughout the whole fight. And that was basically it. I mean, Dillashaw has a good enough chin, good enough cardio that he stayed pretty much out of the way and absorbed the shots he had to and kept working. And so Dillashaw has himself set up pretty nicely for a title shot, especially considering how the next fight went down. But it also sounds like they might do an immediate rematch. So I wonder if Dillashaw will sit out for a little while and then face the winner of the immediate rematch, or if he'll take another fight in the interim. I definitely think that he is the number one contender. There really isn't another fighter in that division who's even close. I'd say it's Garbrandt, Dillashaw, and Cruz, and then everybody else. You know, the Junior Assunção is very good, or Rafael Assunção, not Junior. Rafael Assunção is very good. He can't beat those 3 guys. I mean, he just fought Dillashaw and got dominated. Same thing with Brian Caraway and Thomas Almeida. These guys that are up and coming, Aljamain Sterling, they're just not there yet. And Uriah Faber's retired now. I mean, who else is there? Who else is there in that division who could stand in there with either Dillashaw, Cruz, or Garbrandt and come out of there with anything less than a brutal beating? I mean, Cruz is fucking awesome, man. I mean, whatever happened in that title fight, Cruz is a great fighter, and he's gonna dominate everybody else in that division. I mean, you name a fighter from that division that isn't Garbrandt or Dillashaw, and I'll tell you, I mean, Cruz is going to dominate. He's not just going to beat them, he's going to beat them 50-45, and it's not going to be close at any point. But But Garbrandt, man, now it's time to talk about that fight. Garbrandt versus Cruz. It was a 5-round championship fight for the bantamweight title. And if you saw my preview video, I was pretty bummed because I was rooting for Garbrandt, but I was thinking that Cruz was gonna just dominate. I mean, I thought Cruz was gonna do what Cruz does. I thought he was gonna dance around him, tag him up with jabs and stuff, weird kicks and weird feints, and then take him down when he needed to. And it just never happened. Garbrandt fought exactly the way that I said he would need to fight in order to win the fight, and he did it perfectly. His footwork was perfect. His combinations were quick and powerful, and he just was in the perfect position every time. He fought exceptionally well. I mean, better than I could have ever expected. And he really, I mean, I said he would have to fight the perfect fight to beat Dominick Cruz, and he basically did. I mean, other than the fact that in the third and the fourth rounds, when he dropped Dom like 2 or 3 times. And at each time, instead of trying to finish, he just fucking showboated over him, or like danced and mocked him. And it's like, dude, especially the third time, especially the one in the fourth round, I really feel like if he had jumped right on Dom, he could have maybe finished that fight. I mean, Dominick Cruz amazed me with how quickly he recovered. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he was up on his feet again immediately, or he was working to try to get himself into a better defensive position immediately when he took some pretty fucking gnarly shots from the premier power puncher in the division, if not Lineker. I mean, it's probably between Lineker and Garbrandt. I might give Lineker a little bit of the advantage in just raw power. But I would definitely give Garbrandt the advantage in executing that power, in putting that power on people in a way that is going to increase your chances of actually landing. And Garbrandt has better technique. And so, I mean, Lineker may hit harder just in terms of pure power and just pure, but Garbrandt's going to land more often, and he's going to land in a more efficient and technical way that's going to increase the power. So, I mean, I wouldn't want to get hit by either of those guys, but I think Garbrandt actually has the more dangerous power because he can apply it in a more technical and slick manner that's bound to land at some point. Plus, he throws more. Well, I mean, Lineker throws a lot of combinations, but Lineker throws shots to the body and then comes up to the head, and Garbrandt does all of it. He'll lead his combinations at all sorts of different parts of the body and end them at all sorts of different parts of the body. He's also throwing nice kicks, nice leg kicks, nice body kicks. I mean, he just fought the perfect fight, and he dropped Dom a couple times, and he just was always in the perfect position. I mean, I've just never seen anybody who was able to handle Dominick Cruz's footwork and feints as well as Garbrandt did. He never got sucked into a bad position with bad footwork, because that's what Dom plays off of. He feints and does all these weird, like, false starts, and he stomps his foot and then fakes a jab and then dances out of the way, and all that stuff is to try to get you to move your feet or lean forward too much or lean back too much to get yourself off balance, and then bam, he takes you down, and you spend the rest of the round on your back trying to get back up. Garbrandt never did that. He never got sucked into the feints. He never got his feet out of position, and he never. I don't think Dom took him down at all in that fight. He took Dom down in the first round, with a perfectly timed takedown. I mean, he couldn't keep him down, but he did get him down, and he clearly won. I mean, I would have ruled that fight 49-46. Garbrandt, because I gave Dominick Cruz the second round, I'm fairly sure. But really, it could have been 50-45. I mean, or it could have been 48-47, because the fifth round, Garbrandt kind of, his offensive output went down. He wasn't throwing quite as much, and it seemed like he may be starting to get a little tired, or maybe like he felt like he could coast a little bit, which I thought was a mistake at the time when I was watching the fight, because whenever guys do that, it seems like the judges, especially, I mean, you should never assume you're going to win a decision victory over a sitting champion. I mean, it just, often, if you go to decision with the champ's going to win. There's plenty of judges that have that philosophy that you have to beat the champ. You have to take the title from the champ. And if the fight's at all close, they're going to give the decision to the champion. And I mean, that's happened plenty of times. So after he kind of coasted in the 5th round, I started to think, well, maybe they're going to screw this up and give the decision to Dominic Cruz. But they didn't. They made the right call. It was 49-46, Garbrandt. And, I mean, it was a great fight. It was a really good fight. And Dominic Cruz impressed me a lot with his toughness. He got hit with some big shots from a big puncher. And he got up almost immediately every time. He's obviously in incredible shape and just has a lot of toughness, man. And say what you want about Dominic Cruz, and I definitely say everything about Dominic Cruz. I hate Dominic Cruz's personality. He just seems like a cocky douchebag to me. But I've always respected Dominic Cruz, especially as a fighter. But even as a person, after that fight with his post-fight speech and everything, my respect for Dominic Cruz went up a little bit. He didn't make any excuses. He didn't bitch and moan. He just said that Garbrandt outfought him. And congratulations, I'd love to get a rematch. And I mean, that was the truth. That was the genuine. I mean, that was being genuine. Garbrandt outfought him. He probably was shocked at how well Garbrandt dealt with everything that Dominic Cruz can throw at you. And I mean, there was nothing that Cruz could say. I mean, there were no excuses or anything, and he didn't make any. And so my respect for Dominic Cruz went up considerably, even though he is unlikable. He comes off as unlikable to me. Garbrandt also comes off as unlikable. Both of them, to me, felt unlikable throughout the whole fight. And Garbrandt just seems like kind of an idiot to me. Like, in the pre-fight stuff, Cody and I were laughing. Cody, my brother, we're laughing about Cody Garbrandt's pre-fight interviews and stuff, because you can tell he's just this kid from the streets that, is just a tough guy who's a really good boxer, but he's not the smartest guy. I mean, he's not the brightest bulb. And he was getting tuned up on these interviews by Dominic Cruz, who spends all of his time on camera. And so Dominic Cruz was just coming off looking smart and funny, and Cody Garbrandt was coming off looking like an infant. And during the fight, he came off unlikable. Like, when I was talking about the times when he had Dom down, he never tried to finish him. He would just showboat and dance and point at him and stuff. And it's like, when Nate Diaz hits somebody with a straight left and hurts him, and they're still standing, and he smiles and points at him, that's one thing. But, like, if you knock the dude down, I mean, you've knocked him down. You hit him so hard that he's on his ass. Try to finish, man. Especially, this is for the fucking championship belt. Get in there and try to finish. Don't be dancing around and fucking acting like a douchebag. I will say that the whole thing with that kid, the kid who survived cancer that Garbrandt had with him and brought into the ring, strapped the belt on him and all that stuff obviously was awesome. That's all very cool that he did that. Again, I have Misha helping me. She's a fight expert. She likes Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Anyway, all that stuff with the kid was obviously cool. I mean, Garbrandt's obviously a pretty good guy. He just comes off as kind of an idiot. But I do think that he'll be a great champion, and I did laugh out loud after the fight in his post-fight interview when he was like, TJ Dillashaw, come try me, motherfucker! That was hilarious. It made everybody at my mom and dad's house laugh, and I do hope that that's the fight they do. I mean, Dominic Cruz deserves a rematch. I wouldn't bitch and moan if they gave him an immediate rematch. I would understand. But I think the fight to make is TJ Dillashaw and Cody Garbrandt. And think about the money that the UFC will make with that shit. That's a real rivalry fight. Those guys really don't like each other because TJ Dillashaw is a fucking turncoat and left their gym to go with Dwayne Douchebag at Elevation. And so they really don't like each other. And they would really sell that fight. And it would be a big-time rivalry showdown. And also, I mean, I think it would be an amazing fight. It's definitely the two fastest guys who can still knock you out fighting each other, man. And Dillashaw has that Cruz kind of movement and footwork and feint stuff, but then he's got the power behind it. He throws a lot of head kicks and shit too. And Garbrandt's just got that unbelievably smooth, brutal boxing technique, man. That kid has been boxing since he was a little kid, and it shows. He throws perfect, powerful, fast combinations that just wreck guys when he hits them. I mean, Dominic Cruz has a crazy chin. He's got a granite chin, and he went down 2 or 3 times because this Garbrandt kid just he levels guys when he hits them. So I'm very excited about that fight. I mean, I would be excited about a rematch between him and Cruz, too. Don't get me wrong. I would totally understand if they booked that fight, and I would look forward to it. But I'd rather see Garbrandt and Dillashaw at this point because I want to see Dillashaw get knocked the fuck out. I want to see Garbrandt go in there and just crush him. Which, I mean, could definitely not happen. If I'm being fair and unbiased, Dillashaw's a great fighter, man. And he's Dominic Cruz with power, as far as I'm concerned. He's a little bit faster, more athletic, and has more power. But he fights basically the same way as Dominic Cruz. So that makes him a very, 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 very dangerous guy. And I would love to see him and Garbrandt throw down. Okay, so now on to the main event, which was not much of a main event, honestly. It pretty much happened a little worse than what I expected. I expected Amanda Nunes to go in there and beat her down in the first round. I expected Ronda to get finished in the first round. I didn't expect it to happen in under a minute, and I didn't expect Ronda to not land a single punch or any kind of offensive weapon at all. I mean, Ronda never got going in this fight. I believe 15 seconds in, she was hurt, and after that, she was in survival mode. And she just doesn't have the skills to survive. She doesn't have the boxing defense. She doesn't know how to move her head. She doesn't know how to keep her hands up. She doesn't know how to get out of the way. She doesn't know how to keep her feet in the right position. She just doesn't... Striking is not her deal. She's not a striker, but that fucking idiot coach of hers has got her convinced that she's a striker. I'm not saying that she went in there with the wrong game plan or any of that shit, because I think people who are saying that are stupid. They're being dishonest, honestly, is what they're doing. Because we didn't get to see Ronda's game plan. We didn't get to see what Ronda was going to try to do. We saw Amanda Nunes fucking smack her with a right hand about 10 seconds into the fight. Ronda be hurt and then try to survive. That's all we saw. So we didn't see Ronda's game plan. We didn't see what Ronda had planned to try to do to win this fight. We saw her get hurt immediately and get crushed like a fucking bug afterward. So all these guys who are saying, oh, you know, she thinks she's a striker, she thinks she's going to go in there and strike with all these world-class people, it's fucking stupid, it's her fault, blah, blah, for all these dumbass game plans, her and her coach. We didn't see their game plan, guys. We saw her go in there, get hurt with the first shot she took, and then try to survive and get crushed. And so to say that, you know, she thought she was going to try to strike with Amanda, you don't know what she was going to try to do, and you're just being a dick. I will say, though, that Edmund Trevelyan, or however you say his fucking last name, is Ronda's biggest problem. She hasn't progressed at all, man. She hasn't gotten any better from when she first was fighting in Strikeforce. I mean, she has not gotten better from that point. Her thing was that she was always so athletically dominant that as soon as she got a hold of the other girl, it was over. The fight was over, man, because nobody could deal with her strength and her technique on the ground. But then, when she came to the UFC, she became such a big star, and then she won a few fights by knockout, and that was the worst thing that could have ever happened to her, in my opinion. She hit Alexis Davis with that big right hand, and then did the hip toss, and flipped her over and TKO'd her, and then when she knocked out Betch Correa, or however you say her fucking name, that was the worst thing that could have ever happened to Ronda, because I do think that Ronda kind of did buy into the hype a little bit after that, and started thinking she was a better striker than she really is, and that definitely played a part in the Holly Holm fight. I mean, if you want to say that, definitely, if you're going to attack her for her game plan and being cocky and not realizing how outclassed she was on the feet, talk about the Holly Holm fight. Don't talk about this fight with Amanda Nunes. This fight with Amanda Nunes was her getting hurt immediately and then getting crushed by someone who hits harder than any other woman in the UFC. I think that if you watch Amanda Nunes' fights, I think the other girl doesn't realize what they're up against until they take that first shot. If you watch the fight with Sarah McMahon, this past fight with Misha Tate, and this fight with Ronda Rousey, you can just tell when Amanda lands that first right hand, those three girls were just like, what the fuck? What? Like, and then, like, because they just are not used to being hit that hard. Amanda Nunes has good technique on her shots. She throws her entire body into stuff. She wraps her hips like you're supposed to, and she hits people at the end of her punches, where they're the most powerful. She has broad shoulders, big, long arms, and she knows exactly how to hit people to get the most out of it. I think she hurt Ronda with the first shot she threw, and then crushed her after that. Just crushed her like a bug. And she made Ronda really look like she didn't even belong in there with her. It was kind of sad in a way to watch it. But in another way, it was the evolution of the sport, man. We're in a different place now. These girls are much better than they were when Ronda was dominating everybody. And Ronda's not going to be able to get by with just her athleticism anymore. She's going to have to get some technique going. But I just don't see that happening. I don't see Ronda fighting again. That was just too gnarly of a loss, I think, coming off of such a long layover. And I just don't ever see her getting the gumption up to fight again. Why should she? She's rich. She doesn't need to fight anymore. And the girls in these divisions are not fucking playing games, man. Amanda Nunes is a killer, and she lives and breathes and eats fighting. And if you get in the cage with her, she's gonna stomp your ass. Especially if you're not the same, if you're not dedicated the same way she is. Alright, guys, but that was the card. It was a good card. It was entertaining. We had a lot of fun watching it all together. I'm thinking in the future, maybe for, not the next pay-per-view, because it's not that good of a card, but maybe, UFC 209, which is supposed to be the return of Nick Diaz, my guy. Maybe we'll record us watching the fight and record the reactions and stuff. But, yeah. Check this video out. I just made another video about the Cowboys' last game and the upcoming playoff picture. Make sure you like and subscribe this video. I'm going to share it on Facebook if you guys can share it on your Facebooks and your Instagrams and your Twitters and all that shit. It just really helps me out, man. I just like making these videos to get my opinions out there, and if people like watching these kind of talking head videos where people give their opinions, then it's right up their alley. If you know people who like videos like that, then, you know, send them over my way. Alright, guys, I'll be making another video soon. Cowboys don't play for another week, so it won't be a Cowboys video, but maybe a preview video of the next UFC 208, which is Holly Holm versus Jermaine Duradimi for the inaugural 145 Women's Championship. In my opinion, a fight that probably shouldn't be happening.